Hello, everybody. My name is Ricardo Espaya, and welcome to our podcast, Ian and I. Ian Diaz, right?
Yep, hello, this is Ian Diaz.
And welcome to our podcast called Two Tigers and Rum. And yes, you might be wondering why Two Tigers and Rum, but basically this is where everything started, and by everything I mean our political conversations about what the role of government should be, what is a proper philosophic system to follow, etc. But to start things off, today we're going to be talking about something called Neo-Liberalism, right, Ian?
Yes, Neo-Liberalism. We will discuss how Neo-Liberalism has impacted the global cultures and the role that each individual country and government should take to control these new colonial forces. Alright, Ricky, you're ready.
I think we're ready. By the way,
strong words, like in post. Let's save that for later on.
Yeah, we'll save that for later on. But just to let our listeners know, this is our first podcast. We're planning on doing this a weekly thing and to post them on Wednesdays. And feel free to leave any comments, start your own discussion, like it, share it, make us famous. But if not, at least enjoy the conversation. We're not fully professionals at everything, but at least we're learning about our different philosophies and stuff, and you can always add points and stuff. But I think now we should dive in, and to dive in, the first question I want to ask you is what is Neo-Liberalism, and how do you define it? Because when I first heard the term, I wasn't sure exactly what you meant, because there's always like neo stuff, new stuff, Neo-Liberalism, neo-socialism, and all that stuff. So just define it so that we have a definition to start off with.
Of course. Neo-Liberalism, textbook form, like what people know about, is just the free market being imposed in different nations. So it's the concept of international corporations being able to have influence in other countries, not where they're based at. So, for example, Coca-Cola's influence around the world. In my personal opinion, and in many research that I've done, and I've came to the conclusion that neoliberalism is just a modern day colonialism. Why? In the past years, I want to say in the past 40 to 30 years, we've seen corporations and countries hide behind the concept of free market to control and put pressure in less developed and less powerful nations through the forces that markets will have on these countries. For example, we've seen multiple times how corporations have lobbied Congress to vote in their favor by putting pressure on the IMF. While we've seen multiple times while companies like Banana Chiquita in the Caribbean and South America, how this company in particular had congressmen in their board of trustees. So congressmen were putting pressure on these Latin American nations to give land, to not take land away from Banana Chiquita, because they would then wage war in these nations. We would have companies like Coca-Cola, all these big companies that have Congress in their pocket, using the power of Congress to protect their free market interest outside of the United States, where these countries do not have any other option but to bend over, because if not, they would face sanctions by the IMF. And this is something that goes also in Jamaica. This was a problem that happened in Jamaica, in which the IMF would tell them, you guys have to import certain products to the United States in order to receive this monetary help. Oh, you guys want money for farming? That's fine. We will give you money for farming, but you guys can only sell to the United States and at certain price. In other words, that's what I think colonialism is, but we've evolved as humans, so we've used the free market as an excuse to get away with things that people were getting away with hundreds of years ago. And I think that's why we have to have a transparent government, and we have to learn from our mistakes. And that's why I think the market should not dictate different social issues. I think we should, as a society, and government should implement regulations to protect individuals, because market will never regulate those ethical issues.
All right. Oh, there's an echo coming in. Why? Let me just. Well, there we go. It went away. Anyways, I think before getting into all that, just to be sure they understand what you mean by neoliberalism, just to assure people, because now when you say you're a liberal, that means that you're a Democrat. What Ian is referring to, he means like classical liberalism, believers of liberty. But due to changes in nomenclature, now if you're a liberal, that means you're a Democrat. But what Ian is referring to is neoliberalism, or neoliberalism, people who believe in the free market, but a new way that is being implemented and how is being conducted. I think my first main criticism, and we actually might be in agreement in this, but not necessarily what is the problem or the root of the problem. We differ in what is the root of the problem. The first thing I want to clarify is that I think Ian is wrong in calling what he is describing as the free market. Because what is evidently being described is certain governmental powers and certain state legislation giving benefit to certain corporations, meaning that other corporations don't get that benefit, or other companies, and in turn promoting corporatism. And I'm not for corporatism or cronyism. In a market economy, a free market, the government is not institutionalized to provide favors to companies and others. What that is called, which is what's plaguing most of the world, is cronyism, which is you do me a special favor and maybe I'll give you money for your candidacy, etc. But in other words, it's just a matter of people paying the government to give them special interest so that they can be protected from competition or assert certain prices that they want their industries to be paid. And I just think that's a very big classification to make, because to blame all that on the free market and say that that is the free market is erroneous, because the free market is when people are free to compete and do not have any government assistance in whatsoever. But now, the main point that I want to make is that in general, generally speaking, zero government intervention, zero government favors, which I'm completely against. I do not see anything wrong with a company wanting to invest in a foreign country if, let's say, the wages are lower, etc. But I am extremely against the fact that companies lobbying Congress in order to get special favors that other smaller companies cannot obtain. That is not the free market, that is cronyism. And I'm completely against cronyism, and I think that much of the world is now suffering a lot of economic consequences because of the cronyism that we live in.
I understand that. I do understand. I just think that is a way to lie and confuse what's happening. Yeah, I think that's a very theoretical and great idea, saying that, oh, let's create this thing in which we are all free. But if I'm not mistaken, there was a sociologist called Bauman that summarizes this paradox perfectly. Never have we been so free, and never have we felt so powerless. Yes, I want to come out and say, in the theoretical world, okay, fine, I want to be able to grow the bananas, the banana Chiquita has. I want to go into Colombia and try to impose this thing. There's not going to be any protection for me. There's not going to be any fair rules. The market's not going to help me to go in there and be competitive against Banana Chiquita. That's where the government has to step in and create
what I don't understand. is wait. Let me just wait for the echo to go away.
Don't sell me freedom.
No, I completely agree that if people are using it as a PR way, let me wait for the echo to go away. There we go. I completely understand that if people are saying, or corporations are using the free market as a PR way of getting away with what they want, I am completely against that. But what I want you to realize is that is not the free market. And if you say that, oh, the government needs to provide solutions or something to smaller companies, what you're not seeing, I think, is that the government is the problem in the first hand in giving special favors to these companies. If the government said that is not my role, then people could compete. But when you give the special privilege, let's say a company X, that it says, look, you can only buy from me if it's at a certain price. If not, I'm going to do a consequence, do sanctions on you or put you in jail or whatever. That's not any term of free market. Yeah, that is some sort of colonialism. You have the state power behind you. A free market wouldn't be that if you go to the government, you're like, look, I want you to help me out, and I don't want to compete with these people. There's smaller competition entering. Give me a certain regulation or something that protects me from entering this competition. And if you do, hey, I can provide you some donation, or I can do something for you. And then you just enter like some sort of regulatory capture.
That's fine. So we're already coming into my side then. You're already talking about regulations.
No, I'm not saying to put regulations. What I'm saying is that the government shouldn't be in the first place involved in the marketplace. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying all these problems are arising because of special privileges wanting to get away with stuff that in a free market they wouldn't get away.
The government is involved in the market solely because the corporations want the government to be involved in the market. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, that is very true. That is very true. But you're
get away with the stuff that they.
No, I understand. Look,
if it did not have the United States of America government behind them, it's simple as that.
I completely look. It is always going to be in the self-interest of somebody to use state power to protect them. I'm not saying that, but it is not only one way. The government also has interest, because if they didn't have interest, they would have not done it. They also get benefit from cronyism.
The government in itself, the government as an entity, does not have interest. Individuals that make up the government have gain benefits from doing that. And
the same goes to corporations. Corporations in themselves have it. Individuals in charge of corporations too have interest. But what I'm saying is that there's two groups of people who
they'll be successful by making money for the corporations and the shareholders. And the way for them making the most profit and then for their shareholders are by getting away with the sleazy stuff that they get away with.
I understand. Yeah, that's very low. That's very unethical.
And what I'm saying is, and it's something that I believe it's what Hobbes says and Locke says in his theory, is that when you assume a government position, you assume sort of a higher position. You assume like the blueprint of society. You're supposed to know what's best for society. And if we do strict regulations that X corporation could not at all, or an individual could not have personal interest as well as political interest, we would avoid this problem. As simple as that. We shouldn't have like the theory of like, oh, super PACs. It's a way in which corporations are using the free market in a way to control. This is another way of neoliberalism. It's a different type.
But that's like wrong to say. It's the way a corporation is using the free market to control. No. It's the way that the corporation is taking advantage of government and the way that government is willing to provide these advantages that they get away with this stuff. It's not the free market that is letting them do this. If the government were to stick true to institutionalizing a free market, then the corporations lose that power of using the government to get in that interest. At the end of the day, what's happening is that both corporations and the government are benefiting themselves mutually. We agree in that extent to that, but what I'm saying is it's not the fault of the free market. It's the fault of cronyism.
But who comprises the free market?
Individuals.
Individuals, right?
No, wait. To say who comprises the free market presupposes a question of what is the free market. The free market is a system in which individuals trade voluntarily, and if we have a government, is where the government provides you with the right to protect your property, your liberty, and your pursuit of happiness. Hey, sounds like the Constitution of the United States. But if we talk what constitutes a free market, the system in which people act voluntarily and they trade voluntarily, meaning that if I don't want to agree, I don't want to trade with you, I don't want to, that is composed of individuals. But I won't say like, oh, because the free market is made of individuals.
That's a beautiful theory, especially in.
I mean, you say it's a beautiful theory, but I ask you, what got people out of poverty? Why is it that in history, if you look at the standard of living of people, it's a very flat line, and then all of a sudden, boom, we have a standard of living. It is because of the free market that now you're using this computer and you can Skype with me, that you can have food and you can dedicate time to this. And you're
Is it because of the free market?
I mean, I ask you, what brought about this wealth?
I really do think it's just we as humans evolve. We've discovered new things. Like, we find something gets tapped out. All right, let's see a different way. Everything's a building block to get there.
I have a question. So, what is required for a person to be able to think like that? Meaning, what is required for a person to not have an entity say you cannot think that? Let's think of the times of the Inquisition. What is required for people to think?
Free thinking, free thought. I understand that, but it's not like, okay, we can say that America was discovered for economic reasons, and I agree with that. I completely agree with that, but that does not justify anything. I just think I don't think the market is what dictates free thought. I just think it's a better government.
But you said a key word. You said free thought. You said free thought. If somebody were to tell you cannot think this because I say so, then you don't have free thought. And free thought is corollary to free markets. Why? Because think about this. If you tell me I want to buy this glass for $5, that is what I think, and I think that is valuable. But then comes the government and says, no, you can't buy it for $5. You have to buy it for $7. Why? Because we think you cannot buy it. That is hampering my free thought, my own opinion, and it's hampering the development of knowledge because of that. It's hampering the discovery of knowledge that takes place in the marketplace. But you hinted to a very important point. You said freedom of thought led to certain discoveries. And what I'm telling you is that complete freedom leads to the process of discovery, but it leads also to the process of the division of knowledge, division of labor, and the accumulation of capital, which is what makes an economy more productive, meaning more output per person, meaning more goods per person, which means that in general prices tend to fall down, the standard of living comes to increase. Why is it that you think that 10 years ago, touchscreen phones were only available to the few? And now, there's people here in this country, Dominican Republic, who have an iPhone 4. And I'm like, what? What I mean to say is the prices start to go down when there's a market because of the increases in productivity. And productivity is just output for more labor. What I truly believe is that freedom and freedom of thought, freedom of voluntary consent and decisions is the key to the advances of civilization. I am against any form of violence because it hampers man's ability to think. And if man can't think, he cannot survive. But we're getting philosophical now. But
exactly. So I think we're
deviating a bit from the topic.
Moving away from the topic, and we're moving from, like, yes, that's why you're moving towards a philosophical argument.
Because at the end of the day, everything is going to be based on philosophical notions that we have.
But that is true. But
what we're gonna do now, just give your final thought, and then let's move on to the minimum wage debate. Because if not, we're just gonna keep on going. But just say your final thought, so I can let you say your words.
My final thought about neoliberalism, and the reason why I feel so strong about this, I do believe that nations, for example, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, when it eventually becomes a nation, Cuba, it's going to be experimenting neoliberalism like no other country in the 21st century, because they're just about to theoretically enter the 21st century. Nation should be strong about it, and not bend over to these colonial corporations, because they are an extent of these colonial countries, of these colonial nations, in a way that we've established systems to protect nations from colonizing nations, and now these nations are disguising themselves as corporations.
Perfect.
And that's my point. We need to be careful as that, especially as coming from a region that has been historically colonized. And it's going to continue doing until we don't open our eyes and see what's happening.
Well, thank you very much for listening to our podcast, Two Tigers and Rum. We hope that you enjoyed it and that you stay tuned for our next episode, which will be regarding the minimum wage. Have a great day.